friends, family, loved ones, welcome back to the Grand Weaver. It is so good to be here with you all. At the Grand Weaver, what we do is something quite simple. We are sharing stories of inspiring ministries that are all over the world and finding ways that we get to join in God's redemptive work, weaving our story with the Grand Weaver's work of redeeming all things for the good of the world. We are here gifted today with, of course, Eric, and also our special guest today is Kaycee. Kaycee is our guest of the day, but the founder and executive director of The Real Hope. Kaycee, welcome, and I would love to invite you in with a really simple question. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do. Give us like the on-ramp, and then we'll have Eric dive in to talk about The Real Hope with you later.
Yes. Okay. I would love to. Well, yes, I'm the founder and executive director of the Real Hope Project. At Real Hope, what we do is we make videos of kids in the foster care system who are waiting to be adopted. And then we use those videos to try to find a forever family for every child.
That's awesome. So, Kaycee, I'm very, very curious about how you got started with the Real Hope Project. Like, what was the genesis story? We'd love to hear that.
Yes. Well, so my husband and I always wanted to adopt. We always felt like that was something that God was calling us to before we ever even got married. It was something that we talked about. And it really came from our own experience of just noticing a trend when we would tell people that we wanted to adopt inside the church, outside the church. It was basically the same. When we would tell people that we wanted to adopt, we would get typically tons of enthusiasm and excitement and support, and people like, oh, adoption, that's so great, you should do that. And like, we love that. That's a beautiful reaction. But we found that if we told people we wanted to adopt out of foster care, we would sometimes get a pretty different reaction that was more like, oh boy, like, I don't know about that. And, here's my neighbor's uncle's horror story about adoption, or like, have you done your research on, on these kids and all the trauma and all these things. And we always try to remind ourselves and anybody who hears us talk about that, like, of course, those questions came from a place of love, and people just wanted to know that we knew what we were getting into. And we didn't know what we were getting into, but we were still we still felt called to it. We were still going to do it. And so that just kind of began us on this journey. And we dreamed and prayed for a long time about like, man, how do we help to change the narrative around adoption from foster care, especially within the church, outside the church as well. But we knew that the church has such a heart for kids, and we do mission trips internationally, and we do, compassion child sponsorship programs, like beautiful things for kids. And it's not that the church doesn't care about kids in foster care. It doesn't care about kids right here in our own neighborhoods. But when we think of caring for the orphan and the widow, we just naturally, what comes to most of our minds is like little babies or overseas. And those are both beautiful and worthy causes, but we just don't often think right away of, kids right here in our own neighborhoods and kids who go to, our kids' schools. And so we were dreaming and praying about that for years. We thought, well, we'll adopt, and hopefully that will change the narrative in our little sphere of influence, and that's what we'll do. But then a few years into marriage, I was serving as a youth pastor and just continued to see that I was serving as a youth pastor in a wonderful church, thriving youth ministry, pretty great, and good schools, affluent community, all these things. And I served as a youth pastor there for about 8 years, and just saw year after year, like, man, the kids who have healthy families are thriving, and the kids who don't are struggling. And like, having a wonderful youth ministry is great, but it doesn't move the needle like family. And having healthy schools is great, but it doesn't move the needle like family. And having government safety nets is great, but it doesn't move the needle like family. And just seeing for 8 years, like everything comes back to family. And so kind of seeing the church has a heart for this, and then learning about what other states were doing. We're not the first ones who started doing videos of kids. But I think we are the first ones who started focusing exclusively, like, that is all we're going to do is like videos of kids, and we're going to do it with excellence, and we're going to do it better than anybody else. And so it kind of came from inspiration we saw elsewhere, and thought, what if we just laser focused on that, did only that, and like, what could God do? And so that was 8 years ago, and we've been off to the races ever since.
There's so many questions, Kaycee, that are emerging. I would love to know so many things. I'm wondering about kind of the specifics of your family and how the process has impacted you and how you all kind of orient yourselves to this work. But we also want to know, what does the Real Hope Project look like today? So you gave us the origin story. Talk to us about its current iteration. Did you say 8 years ago?
Yep.
It has probably matured in a similar way as your children, perhaps. Talk to us about what's happened over those 8 years.
Yes. Well, okay, kind of full story of what things have looked like. When we started in 2016, that first year, we did videos for 3 kids. And then in 2017, we did videos for like 20 kids. And then in 2018, we did videos for like 50 kids. And then for about 4 years in a row, we hit a ceiling of 50 kids every year for like 2018, 2019, 2020. It was also during COVID. So it was kind of hard to gauge, like, are we plateauing because we're plateauing? Are we plateauing because of COVID? And we should kind of like be celebrating that we're like plateaued about like, but after a few years, we realized, given some of the infrastructure within Minnesota and the ways that the system works, due to a lot of different elements, we were realistically getting to all of the kids that we could realistically get to within Minnesota. And at the same time, doors started opening in other states. And so we started launching in, it ended up 2021 and 2022 and every year since, we started launching in new states. So we're officially now active in 8 states across the country, and actively working to serve kids in other states as well. So trying to, each state operates really, really differently. So it's a long journey to actually get launched in a new state. But this year we'll serve just under 200 kids by the end of the year. So we're pretty excited about that.
So let me make sure I heard this. You started with 3, and now you're talking about 200 in 8 states and expanding to more.
Yes. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And a remarkable thing, if I remember, Kaycee, from our journey together, just maybe share for our audience the complexity even within the state of Minnesota. I think you've highlighted even county to county. Not only is it state to state that it varies, but even county to county. So maybe speak to that a little bit just to help people understand that move from 3 to 200, is just the complexity even in that.
Yes, it is an extremely complex system. So yeah, just in Minnesota, there's 87 different counties, and Minnesota is state-run, county administered. So the state DHS has kind of official legal guardianship of these kids, but it's administered then through their county social workers. So their county social worker is the one who's giving us permission to make a reel of a kid. And so when your parental rights are terminated, your county social worker in the state of Minnesota becomes kind of your legal guardian. And so they're the ones who sign the release. And then on top of that, there's private agencies in Minnesota. So there's 4 or 5 private agencies that hold contracts with different counties. So it could be something like Hennepin County says to Lutheran Social Services, you know, we have 10 kids here in Hennepin County that need reels. The county has to focus on foster care, like temporary, where are these kids going to be tonight? Where are these kids going to be for this next week? That, like, kind of putting out the fires is like absorbs most of the county's bandwidth, is like just keeping these kids safe today. And so they'll contract out to a private agency like Lutheran Social Services to say, you work to find the forever family. We'll take care of now. You work on permanency, on forever. And so then the agencies will reach out to us to say, hey, we need a reel for Joey. And then we get the county social worker to sign the release to say we can actually do it. So like that's how Minnesota works. And then every state has some kind of like variation on that. So it took a couple of years to launch in the state of Wisconsin because there was just a lot to navigate in that state. The state of Wyoming, we launched in like 3 months. It was like the Wild West. And they were like, this is great, let's go.
Literally the Wild West, yeah.
Yes. So it just really depends. We have a director of operations and state engagement who's second in command here at Real Hope. Her name's Abby. And she is phenomenal at navigating the complexity of state laws and how to remain compliant in all these different ways. So yeah, she's the best.
That's awesome. Eric, did you have a follow-up, or should I?
I do. Go. Yeah. So, Kaycee, I'd love for you to maybe share a little bit about the impact of the reels themselves. I recently saw one of your newsletters come out just highlighting just the impact that you see, and there's really some metrics actually behind it, and some pretty exciting numbers, even that you were reporting from March and April. So, if you maybe speak to not just the impact of the reel on the kid that you're highlighting, but what is that doing within communities?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of numbers I could share. So we have so far made reels for 574 kids as of this week. We've seen half of our kids get matched with forever families. So we're pretty excited about that. We've seen, in particular, for teenagers, having a reel doubles a teenager's likelihood of finding a forever family. One of the challenges of operating in this space of child welfare is that there are so many privacy and confidentiality issues around these kids. So when a kid gets matched, we rarely know who they've been matched with. We hear from the social worker that says, Joey's been matched, take his reel down. And that's all we know, unless the family reaches out to us to say, we adopted this child because of this reel or whatever, which does happen sometimes. But what we do know is that the kid has been matched one way or another. And so just in the months of March and April, I counted up okay, how many matches and adoptions have we heard about in the last 2 months? And I think it was 31 kids who have been matched or adopted in the last 2 months, which is pretty wild. We've also seen, I think when we started Real Hope, in my mind, it was going to be like a one-to-one matching process. Like the Smith family sees Johnny, they go through the process, they adopt Johnny, tie a bow on it, great, done, And it is not that simple. It's usually much more complicated. And one of the impacts that we've seen that is not necessarily what we set out to do is very often there are families who will start the adoption or foster care process because of a reel that they saw. But by the time they get licensed and go through that whole process, that kid has been matched with another family. And we hear from families all the time, like, okay, well, God used Sarah to get us into this process, but now there's Jamar on the other end of the line, and that's who we're going to end up. And now we never need to make a reel for Jamar because there's already a family there saying yes. And so that's been a really cool thing to see, sometimes really hard, sometimes really painful for those families who fell in love with a specific kid and sometimes need a little bit of time to just process that with the Lord and okay, then what's next for us? But we hear it all the time, and we've been able to measure each time we post a reel, we hear from about 3 families who are stepping into the adoption process or who want to learn more about that particular kid that then we're then connecting to an agency. And those are just the ones we hear from directly. Yeah. And so that's been a cool thing to notice. Is I ran into a friend from college the other day, and she was like, hey, we saw your reels and we got licensed because of the reels. And I never even knew that, that happened. And so that's cool to see, just what God is doing outside of our sort of purview.
Kaycee, I might ask you to take a step back with us. So some of us are savvy in the social media realms, and phrases like reels are normal for us, and others of us might be a little confused and scratching our heads about, wait, is it REAL or REEL? And where are these things housed and what platform? So give us a little bit of the fundamentals for those of us who might not be as exposed to the platforms. And then can you talk to us? You hinted at a few, but tell us some stories that kind of take us from this origin of capturing a student or a youth story, the journey that a family perhaps has been going through, how that matching has happened, what the reel had to do with it, and then what has come out on the other side.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, Ron, thank you for that question and this opportunity to set the record straight because we were calling our videos reels before Instagram named their little thing reels. And I was so annoyed when that happened. So yes, we call reels are like our 2-minute videos. So our name is The Real Hope Project. It's 2 E's, like a movie reel, because we make movies. And so each kid's video we call their reel. But now Instagram has reels on their social media platform. Instagram has a little bit more name recognition than The Real Hope Project does. So people tend to, sometimes that is confusing. So that's where the name comes from. And for people who are listening, you can meet kids through their reels on Instagram and on Facebook and directly on our website. So meet some kids.
Awesome.
As far as stories, I feel like I could tell stories all day. A few of the ones that we're just really excited about right now is a huge part of our rhythm is that we share at churches frequently and try to highlight these kids in front of church communities. And sometimes it can be really hard because the licensing process takes a long time, and you don't know. Like my husband and I have been speaking at just different churches for 8 years now, and so he'll go and speak, or I'll go and speak. We have another speaker named AJ who was actually adopted when she was 18. Wow. She'll go and speak, and it's always like, "How'd it go today?" And it's like, "Good, I think." Like it always goes well, I think, but like you don't know in the moment. Like, yes, 3 families chose to adopt teenagers out of the system today. Like, that's just not, you don't know what the fruit is. So we've just been like trying to just kind of faithfully do this, like where it makes sense and where God opens doors. 2 or 3 years ago, my husband spoke at a small church in Brooklyn Center. It's called North Center Church. Maybe 75 people there on a Sunday. He spoke. We talked about it. He was like, I think it went well. Seemed like it was well received. Not sure what the impact will be. Maybe 6 months ago, we got an email from a family that was like, 2 years ago, you guys spoke at our church, and we started following you on Instagram, and then we saw these 2 kids, this brother and sister, and we went through the process and we adopted them, and now they're home. And do you want to come back and speak again? And we were like, yes. And so like a month or 2 ago, I got to go back to their church and speak again. And I got to see these kids whose reel we had made years before. And so just so cool to see the Grand Weaver, like weaving things together, like that we had, again, just like no concept that was even like we're praying that that's happening, but we don't know. So that's one story that's just been really cool and just beautiful to see this family together. Like they're just such a fit. Like the 4 of them are just such a fit. And then another one that is similar but a little bit different is we made a reel for these brothers in North Dakota a while back. And just like the most charming teenage brothers. And teenage boys are the hardest to find families for. Like some of the biggest challenges are teenage boys and sibling groups, because who has room for sibling groups and, you know, who has multiple bedrooms if they need multiple bedrooms, they don't always. But and so there was these teenage brothers, and they just have such a sweet dynamic, and their reel just turned out beautifully. They just love each other, and they're goofy teenage boys. I went out to North Dakota. I spoke at a pastor's church. He and his wife had adopted years earlier babies who are now adults, and so they already had a heart for this. I already kind of knew it was a part of their calling. The pastor had us come and speak at his church. He followed us on Instagram. An influencer in North Dakota shared these boys' reel, and the pastor and his wife saw it, and they were like, I think this is what's next. And they went through the whole process. They just finalized the adoption maybe like 2 months ago. One of the boys just got baptized at their church. Like, it's just like the coolest. I mean, those are the stories that just like will just keep you motivated for years, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Hey, I would love to hear kind of what do you think's next? Like what's God stirring in you? You mentioned that you're now in 8 states, but what's got God laying on your heart?
Yes. 2 years ago in 2023, we felt like God put a vision and a calling on our hearts to serve 1,000 kids a year. So that has been really refining and energizing to have that named of like, okay, 1,000 kids a year, that's what we're going after. So anything that's not leading us toward that goal, we're like pruning that, like cut that, move this. And so this year we'll serve just under 200. So that's like, 5x growth that we're going after. But I think that has been like we're seeing the doors open. I think for the first year or 2 after I sort of shared that vision with my team and we started moving, it was kind of a question mark of like, is this even feasible? Like, can we even navigate the red tape in other states? Like, is anybody going to want to work with us? And that answer has been a pretty resounding yes. And so now it's like, okay, now we're doing it. Now we're operating like a national organization. I would say our next big challenge is how do we fundraise like a national organization? We'd been in a place where we're like now operating like a national organization, but still kind of fundraising like a local organization. And so we're in this journey now of like, how do we reach out to business owners? How do we find corporate champions? How do we navigate? My whole world has been church. I was a youth pastor. We speak at churches. And that really was sustainable. When we were only in Minnesota, that worked great. But now that we're serving nationally, we're seeing, okay, our Sunday by Sunday approach is probably not going to work fundraising wise. And so that's just kind of like the next hurdle. And we're seeing God bring things together. And it's been an exciting time.
Yeah, for sure. And the good news is there is a convergence, just as encouragement to you. In fact, next week, I'm spending quite a bit of time gathering with different business leaders, community leaders, talking about business as mission and business as ministry. And so there is a movement within the United States in particular to talk about how do our for-profit businesses really like partner with nonprofits? What does that look like? And so just as an encouragement to you, that's part of even why this podcast came together, is those that are in the circles of the business realm like myself and those who are in the nonprofit space. There's a lot of partnering that needs to happen. I had a great conversation with a guy for a couple hours yesterday who his business is supporting like 10 different nonprofits, and they got it posted up on the wall. And so with that, I'm going to kick it back over to Ron, because Ron, you got the next question. Natural lead in. I set you up.
Eric, you did up so well. Kaycee, what I get to explore is asking you the question, what do you all need? So as I'm hearing about this move to scale and serve 1,000 youth, right, and expanding into different states to become a national organization, but yet you all have functioned as a small kind of in-house entity that fundraising has to grow. What is it that you need? You kind of stepped in this direction by naming the number of students or the number of youth you want to serve. Talk to us about the specific needs. And in some ways, we like to say at this point, like if you name it, you can tame it, or you can claim it, right? So what are those metrics that you are starting to embed in your team's imagination that then you can bring to fruition and say, hey, we need to hit these numbers so that we can get these things done and accomplish the large, big, hairy, audacious goal of 1,000 youth?
Oh, this is my favorite question, Ron. So we have been able to kind of drill down to find what is the actual cost of a reel. And the full cost of a reel we found is about $3,000. Okay. That includes the full process of like getting a referral from the social worker, coordinating a kids shoot day, traveling with two people, because we have a videographer and a shoot lead, traveling with two people, filming, editing, and then distributing that reel. That whole kind of process costs about $3,000. But we think we can get to the place where we're serving 1,000 kids a year with a budget of about $4 million. So if you do the math on that, that's like, 3/4 of it directly to real costs. And then obviously there's overhead. That's a part of that as well. So that's kind of our big picture dream, is like if we can get to a budget of $4 to $5 million a year, that would be we could do what we are setting out to do. And so there's different ways that we're inviting people into that. The first is just funding a reel. We're asking like business owners, small businesses and churches to just say, hey, fund a reel. And I think that really helps connect people to the work. So that's one option. We also have different like business partnerships. So it's like maybe be an event sponsor for our big fundraising gala in October. And so we're looking for small businesses that would be an event sponsor. And that's like 5,000 to 50,000, kind of like in that range. And then we're looking for like corporate champions, like who would come alongside us in like a significant way and sort of like put your name on like, this is what our company is about. And whether that's like a portion of this commission or a portion of this profit, or what kind of like recurring or consistent revenue could contribute to these kids finding their forever family. So those are kind of like the levels of like fund a reel, kind of fund multiple reels through being a gala sponsor, or become a corporate champion and like get behind this in a significant way. Those are kind of our asks. The other thing that we're kind of building out is, as we launch in new states, and as I've mentioned how complicated it is, looking for givers in those states that would serve as like contingent kind of launch partners of like, if and when we get a yes from the Department of Human Services in Montana, if and when we work through that, will you fund our first 10 reels or our first 20 reels or something like that, so we can communicate to that state like, we've already got a funding partner, we're ready to go, we just need the green light. Those kinds of partnerships are so precious. So those would be kind of the main things that would come to mind for me. Did that all make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me see if I can run it back to you. So you real funders, in the sense of having this $3K per reel, and mindful of the goal of 1,000, right? Yep. Event sponsors, folks who help with your gala and your fundraising events, and then you said that's like 5 to 50K that folks can contribute in that way, and then some corporate sponsors, and I just heard launch partners. So if and when the state partnership is established, then those folks can be at the ready to help ensure that they can launch some reels in the state that they're locally housed in.
Exactly. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. And Kaycee, I'd love to kind of flash back to maybe sharing a little bit. We didn't touch on this so much, but the population of youth that you serve. Maybe speak a little bit to even things that we've highlighted on other episodes around the risk of aging out of the foster care system. How many people are serving this particular population of kids? Obviously, you've highlighted the challenge of getting them placed in forever homes, but maybe just share both sides of that coin in terms of who's serving in that space today and what the impact is if they're not adopted and the impact when they are. Yes. I'd love just to help people understand like why the ask and why the focus and the energy and we all believe it's well worth it, but I want maybe to put a little more around that would be super helpful.
Yeah, for sure. Let me kind of paint the picture, I guess, of how the landscape of foster care and adoption looks nationally.
Yeah.
So there are 400,000 kids in foster care in the United States. The goal of the foster care system, the whole reason it exists, is reunification with biological parents. So the hope is that when kids go into foster care, mom and dad stabilize, whether they need to go through rehab or find stable employment or find stable housing, whatever it is that they need to do. Hopefully, prayerfully, mom and dad do that and kids are able to go back home. That's the goal. 400,000 kids in foster care. For 300,000 of those 400,000, they are in limbo where like they might be going back home to mom and dad. If mom and dad stabilize, there's still kind of a chance of that happening. For 100,000 of those 400,000, they have been in the system for long enough and for severe enough reasons that their parental rights are legally terminated and going home is no longer an option. Those kids face one of two realities. They're either going to age out of the foster care system or they're going to be adopted into a forever family. At Real Hope, we only work with kids in that smaller bucket. We're only working with the kids who need to be adopted. Going home is no longer an option, and they're either going to age out or be adopted. When kids age out of the foster care system, the impact is devastating. It's like 20% of people in our prison systems in the United States consist specifically of people who aged out of foster care when they were kids. 29% of kids who age out will be homeless by the time they turn 21. It's like 60% of child sex trafficking victims spent time in the foster care system. Half of all babies who are born to a mother who is in foster care will enter foster care themselves. Like it's just this generational cyclical thing. There's a study by the Annie E. Kaycee Foundation that says that when kids age out of the foster care system, on average, they end up costing taxpayers, costing the state about $300,000 throughout their lives because kids do end up in prison systems and homeless shelters and rehab centers and all these things, all these places we don't want them to be. And so sometimes we kind of compare and contrast that of like, okay, a reel costs $3,000. So like 1% of the cost when kids age out is what it costs to make a video that would double their likelihood of being adopted. So there's like tons of cool ministries that are doing all kinds of things around sex trafficking and homelessness and incarceration and all of these things. But what if we could get ahead of all of that stuff and get kids into families and keep them out of those places in the first place? Like what could the generational impact of that be?
Kaycee, can you say that ratio one more time? I think that one is significant. If you think about the lifetime expense on society / community compared to what it costs to provide one reel. Give us that ratio one more time.
Yes. So the average cost when kids age out of the foster care system without a family is $300,000 to taxpayers or to the state because of all the outcomes for these kids and then ending up in prison systems and homeless shelters and all of these things. Making a reel costs $3,000. So 1% of the cost when kids age out is what it costs to make a reel that could double their likelihood of being adopted.
And tell us about the positive benefits of, you talked earlier about school systems and what's happening in that space and ministry spaces and the benefits of but this has kind of come down to family from your. What are the positive benefits, the positive outcomes that are kind of the flip side of the statistics that you just shared with us in terms of the negative
Absolutely. The positive outcomes are like they're harder things to measure or have metrics around because they're things like love, and it's like belonging and stability. And I think, yeah. And just like the support that kids need, I think we see this really clearly. So we adopted our son 7 years ago now. And just seeing like he's an awesome kid and he's solid and he's doing well. And also when he was 16, one piece of his adoption paperwork got lost and his new social security number, his new last name did not match his social security number. And so at 16, he couldn't get his license. He couldn't get a job because he didn't have a social security number that matched his last name. And this was also like kind of still during some COVID craziness and like everything was shut down. And it was such a clear example to me of like, he didn't care about giving his social security card. Like he doesn't care at all about that. And if me and my husband were not dragging him to like, we are standing in line, we are calling the social security office for hours. We're waiting on hold because you need this. And like, you don't know that you need this, but like, you are going to need this. And it was just such a clear example of like, if we hadn't been there to force that on him, I can just see how kids would choose unsavory ways of making money when they don't know how to navigate the system. And like they need people who are going to force them to do the boring stuff, like call the social security office. And so anyway, that was just like a personal, like lived example of like, wow, I can see how this happens to people and like why that prison, pipeline is so clear when you don't have somebody helping you navigate just the complexities of adult life. I think sometimes the question comes up that's like, well, why would someone adopt when some of these kids are 16, 17? Like, why would you only adopt? They're only going to be in your family for a year or two. And it just is like, that is not true. Like family does not end when you turn 18. Like family is for forever. And these kids need someone to like come home to for Christmas and Easter forever. They need somebody to call when their car breaks down in the middle of the night and like, who's going to come and pick them up, So I think it is like, I think family, like God designed people to exist in the context of family. Like that is a sacred need. And when it's not met, the impact is devastating. And when it is met, the impact is beautiful.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're really stepping into as the Grand Weaver is to invite people into considering what it looks like to really live generously. And so we're highlighting this acronym of life where, we touched a little bit on finances and the needs and significant needs because of the dream that God has laid on your heart. But I'd love for you to maybe talk to us about the other things. And so as we think about labor, so are there ways that people can help serve with their hands and their feet? Is there influence that people can have or use? And then the other one, expertise. Are there expertise that you're looking for as the real hope to really help you advance the cause? And so in some of those, if there's some practical things, maybe you can share with some of our listeners to invite them to come alongside the real hope. I'd love to hear that too.
Yes. So I will say on the volunteer side, that's one of our constant challenges as an organization is that there's so many privacy and confidentiality rules around these kids that we don't have a lot of ways to utilize volunteers. There's a few, but we're not an organization that has like a large need for volunteers, just to be really honest about it. But we do need people who would help spread the word about these kids. So even just the simple act of like follow us on social media, and when we post kids reels, share them with your community. Like that's like the easiest thing to do. Or if you lead a church, if you lead a company, if you lead a Rotary Club, like if you lead a group of people that would care about this mission, invite us to come and speak. Like we love to come and get in front of groups of people and share. So if you're putting together a conference or like anything like that, like help us get these kids in front of people. So those are more like the volunteer opportunities that we have are like people who are going to drive toward like, I don't have a like, more administrative volunteer work we just don't have. But some of that, like create something and invite us into it is like, yes. that we want to do.
And really use our influence in the places that the Lord's put us, right?
Yes, exactly. The one area of expertise that we're like actively starting to kind of try to figure out is digital marketing. Like as we grow and as we operate nationally, so much of our like marketing or like family outreach kind of strategy has been Sunday by Sunday church presentations. And that's not going to work nationally.
Right.
But like, how do we, and our team is very, I think, very particular about the messaging around these kids and making sure we're always speaking about these kids in ways that are honoring and joyful. And so we're really like controlling of the messaging, but we need some kind of digital marketing agency or something that can come alongside us and help these reels go further, where we don't have like the technical expertise to like optimize our SEO and optimize our Google ad. Like there's this whole world out there that we don't have. I'm a youth pastor, and so trying to figure that piece out is like, if we could find expertise in that area, we'd be thrilled.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So let's volunteer kind of hands-on, except for in the realm of influence, spreading the message, spreading the reels, spreading the word about the organization, funding, of course, and then the expertise. I'm starting to think creatively already. Kaycee, what would it look like if, so I'm at a university right at Bethel, and I'm wondering if there's a social media project that we could task a marketing media class with, to say, if you were consulting or serving as a support for Kaycee's organization, how would you help accelerate their growth through social media use? So anyway, I wonder about those types of things, but you're looking for expertise, kind of social media campaigns and ways to spread the word that way. Yeah.
Exactly. I didn't know you were a Bethel. I'm a Bethel grad.
Oh, well, let's go. We might have plenty more to dive
Bethel's in the
into,
family.
Kaycee.
Yeah.
It's in the fam. Eric, too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all in the blood. Heather's starting her Bethel role in a few weeks. So.
Hey, go Royals.
Yeah, so we got it surrounded. It's all good. Oh, Kaycee, thank you so much for sharing kind of all of the things around the Real Hope Project, and thank you for what you're doing. It's just moving, and ever since I had the opportunity to meet you several years ago, it's been just a joy to kind of see what's unfolding with the Real Hope Project and the way that you're serving. And so I guess I'd love if you would leave us with, if you could share whichever group of people you'd want to speak to, whether it's kids in the system, whether it's people considering adopting out of foster care. I'd love for you to maybe just share that thing that you would want to speak right into the hearts of moms and dads or the kids themselves. Floor is yours. So.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I would love to speak to any family out there that's feeling like a prompt toward adoption. Would just encourage you to go on our website and meet these kids. I think one of the things we always say is there's nothing more powerful than a story. And it's easy to hear about the statistics around kids and to understand the numbers and the outcomes. It's a different thing to like hear a kid's story and see their face and see their laugh and their personality. And so that would be for any listeners, would just encourage you to head to our website, therealhopeproject.org, meet some kids, and then like listen to how the Holy Spirit is leading you. And there is such joy in that obedience.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Kaycee, thank you so much. I am thoroughly excited. Namely, as I process the name Real Hope, and there's a scholar embedded in me that thinks about actually the tangible impact of hope. There is something like a 600x impact on, specifically when they were doing testing on animals, when help is provided and folks are put back, or the creatures in this experiment were put back in an environment where they needed to survive. Their ability to persist in an activity was amplified by 600 times, purely because of hope. Here's what was happening. They had rats swimming in a pool, and when they took those rats out and then put them back in, they were able to go 600 times as long as those who weren't pulled out to be helped. And so the real hope, I think, when you hear about 400,000 youth in foster care, and the specificity of what you all are looking at serving in terms of that 100K who are, in my mind, almost system bound, right? And so for your goals to be now set at 1,000 youth, understanding what it cost per reel and seeing the type of real impact that you all can have on this opportunity that exists in our society, specifically even from a faith base, to care for our neighbors, to care for the widow, the orphaned, and etc. Like, this is beautiful to me. So thank you for sharing your story and giving us the opportunity to weave our lives, our stories, our life, right there, with what you all have going on at the Real Hope Project. It's a gift to us, and we will be in prayer for you as you move forward. And we wish blessings upon you and your organization, and especially the lives of the youth and the families that are going to be impacted by the work you're doing.
Yeah. Amen.
Thanks so much, you guys. So appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you.